A pair of Wisconsin wedding barn owners have filed a lawsuit to fight a new law passed recently requiring them to obtain a liquor license similar to bars and taverns which hold events.
One of the owners today telling us the new law would severely limit their business without the license. Jason
Zimmerman has been reviewing the court documents. He's live in Berlin. Jason.
Brittany, that new law takes effect in 2026, and already wedding barn owners tell me it has led to a drop in bookings, and that's why the owner here at the Fairview Event Barn, which is the venue I'm standing in right now, is one of the two wedding barn owners to file that lawsuit today. Owners and operators of wedding barns tried unsuccessfully last year to kill the law that overhauled regulation of the state's multi-billion-dollar liquor industry. Those changes had support from both Republicans and Democrats, plus the Tavern League of Wisconsin. The most controversial provision requires wedding barn owners to get a permit that would allow them to host events 6 times per year, but no more than once per month. Or they would have to obtain a liquor license to host events as often as they wish. However, many of those owners don't wish to be in the bar business full time and have previously contracted with a vendor to provide that service.
I hope this shows people what this lawsuit is really doing. It's affecting the consumer, and I think it's a dangerous precedent to set, to have legislation that can eliminate competition from the big players, the special interest groups that have a lot of money to throw around.
And the owner here tells me she has no intention of obtaining a liquor license. Just a few minutes ago, I did receive a response from the Tavern League calling the lawsuit frivolous and without merit. More on that coming up at 5 o'clock. At this point, though, it's unclear how soon this case could be heard in a courtroom. Reporting live in Berlin, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.